Hello and welcome to the LLG Grapevine podcast. You're listening to Helen Bennett, LLG's Executive Director of Policy and Governance, and Dennis Hall, LLG Bulletin Editor.
Hello, everyone.
Lots to discuss on this edition of the podcast, Dennis, so let's just get straight on. And let's start with Mazur.
Indeed, and the perspective this time is from the regulators, because the Legal Services Board, the LSB, has highlighted differences in the clarity and consistency of guidance that legal services regulators have given on the question of the conduct of litigation. The LSB launched a review back in October last year following the High Court ruling in Mazur against Charles Russell Speechlys, in which, as is now well known, Mr. Justice Sheldon concluded that an employee of an authorised firm cannot conduct litigation simply by virtue of their employment, even if supervised by an authorised person.
Yeah, well, the super regulator noted that while the judgment did not change the law, it did raise questions about how the reserved legal activity of conducting litigation has been interpreted and applied in practice. Now, publishing its interim findings on the 29th of January, the Legal Services Board said that the material reviewed indicated that the availability of clear and consistent advice and guidance on how the profession should comply with the requirements of the Legal Services Act differed across parts of the regulated sector.
And it said that at times the information provided by approved regulators and regulatory bodies in relation to the conduct of litigation varied in clarity and level of detail. The report said that regulators adopted differing approaches, ranging from listing actions that could be considered to be conducting litigation or citing specific examples from case law, and others simply referred to the Act for a definition of the conduct of litigation.
Yes, and it also noted that some guidance on the supervision of colleagues undertaking reserved legal activities was not always articulated with sufficient precision. Can't say that word, Dennis. In relation to the distinction between those reserved legal activities that can be conducted by authorised persons under the supervision of an authorised person and those that cannot, including the conduct of litigation. So the Legal Services Board also found that the material reviewed indicated that engagement on draft guidance between the approved regulators and regulatory bodies varied, which may have, they said, contributed to differences in how guidance was interpreted and applied.
Indeed, and in addition, it found that the regulatory bodies held differing levels of information about the extent to which authorised and exempt persons within their regulated communities were in fact regularly engaged in the conduct of litigation. Now, setting out its next steps, the LSB said it expects approved regulators and regulatory bodies to carefully consider the findings in their report and called on regulators to ensure there are no regulatory gaps.
Well, it said this is critical to ensuring the availability of clear advice and guidance to regulated professionals and to avoid inconsistency of approach across different parts of the sector. The Legal Services Board emphasised that the interim report does not make final findings of fact, determinations of compliance, or assessments of the legality of past or current regulatory approaches. It said its full review will be informed by the outcome of the Court of Appeal proceedings in Mazur, as well as further analysis of the material received.
LLG recently said it would seek legislative change on the use of legal executives and unqualified legal staff in the delivery of litigation services, instead of intervening in the appeal of the High Court's decision in Mazur. And it said it took this decision in part due to the uncertainty the ruling had caused, adding, "In these circumstances, LLG considers that the most effective and responsible course of action is to pursue legislative clarification and reform rather than look to overturn the decision itself."
Well, that is the position. And obviously, we'll wait with others to see the outcome of the Court of Appeal and make a decision from then. But, you know, it's not lost on us that government lawyers and ways under the Act. So I think there is an argument that there ought to be exemptions for local government lawyers. And incidentally, we have our webinar on Wednesday, the 11th, with Bevan Britton on the employment context. of the implications of Mazur. So please do join us for that. Now, from the LSB to the SRA, the Solicitors Regulation Authority has issued a wide-reaching warning notice to firms involved in high-volume consumer claims, particularly those marketing or operating under no-win, no-fee arrangements. The notice follows the SRA's 2025 thematic review, which revealed concerning levels of poor practice, including failures to provide mandatory cost information, unclear fee structures, and weaknesses in safeguarding client interests. These issues risk harming individuals, consumers, and undermining trust in the legal profession.
Well, quite simply, the core message is this: transparency, integrity, and client protection. The SRA emphasises that all firms must fully comply with the SRA principles, specifically acting with integrity, upholding public trust, and acting in each client's best interests. Firms must also comply with the Code of Conduct itself, ensuring no unfair advantage is taken. All instructions are properly authorised, clients' needs and vulnerabilities are assessed, and complaints rights are explained right at the outset.
Yeah, I think a major area of concern is the lack of transparency around fee arrangements, and many firms, groups, and CFAs, DBAs, and similar mechanisms under the no-win, no-fee label, yet fail to explain the real financial risks, such as ATE premiums, expert fees, cancellation charges if a claim fails. And the review found that more than half the firms assessed did not provide complete fee information before clients signed agreements, and some provided none at all.
Now, on marketing and third-party risks, the SRA warns that misleading marketing practices remain prevalent, including exaggerated success claims, unclear small print disclosures, and marketing by unregulated introducers that law firms fail to supervise. And firms must ensure that all marketing materials are clear, accurate, and not misleading, and that all third-party advertising complies with SRA standards. Helen, I think you'll be wanting to deal with the high-pressure tactics. Oh, well, it mentions high-pressure tactics such as cold calling are explicitly prohibited, but I know you'll move on to managing costs and those things.
Yeah, managing costs, templates, and client communications. So firms must ensure that clients receive clear, understandable information on pricing, success fees, deductions, and any linked financial interests. And termination fees must be reasonable and explained up front. Templates must be regularly reviewed and customized to suit client circumstances. And a single flawed template risks harming thousands of customers. And of course, all this is relevant. You know, we see these types of arrangements in housing disrepair and the like. The SRA also stresses the need for robust internal systems, updated cost information, proper supervision, and accurate record keeping of advice given. And clients must be placed in a position to make informed decisions at every stage of their claim.
And failure to comply will result in regulatory action, of course. Sanctions will range from warnings and fines to urgent interventions and referral to the solicitor's disciplinary tribunal, which can suspend or strike off solicitors.
Yeah, well, let's see how they do move to regulate that sector if they've identified these issues as being as alarming and concerning as they are.
Yeah.
But let's move on and let's look at changes to the housing revenue account thresholds, Dennis.
Yes. Now, this is all part of the government's drive to increase the amount of social housing in the sector. And the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government has now unveiled a package of measures aimed at accelerating social and affordable house building, including confirming how social rent convergence will be implemented. This will be something that our housing practitioners will know a great deal about. This will allow councils to build up to 1,000 new homes without having to open a new housing revenue account, and introducing an emergency time-limited approach to uncontracted Section 106 units.
Well, a new decent home standard, updating decency standards for the first time in 20 years, will also apply minimum standards to improve social homes, and the standard will apply for the first time to the private rented sector also. Although reportedly landlords will have, and that's at the moment, will have until 2035 to implement it. So it's not going to kick in the private rented sector for some time. I think the ministry said that the social rent convergence will be implemented so that providers can bring rents that are currently below the government's formula up to that level over time. Now, the Local Government Association and the District Councils Network revealed that rent convergence is due to start in 2027-28 at £1 per week rises, increasing to £2 in 28-29.
The DCN had previously called for this to begin in April 2026 at £2 per week. Now, welcoming the announcement on rent convergence, however, Councillor Paul Harvey, the DCN's housing spokesperson, said, while we would have preferred rent convergence to begin earlier, the broader package provides the long-term certainty that councils need in order to plan their development programmes. Going on, he said, we look forward to working with the government through the new partnership agreement to ensure that councils can deliver the affordable homes their communities need.
Yeah, well, Councillor Tom Hunt, who's the chair of the LGA's Inclusive Growth Committee, he said that the comprehensive package is a much needed shot in the arm for council housing finances and responds to a long-standing call to reintroduce rent convergence. And he also said, on behalf of the LGA, that they will review the announcement in detail, but the decision to delay and step its implementation will have a knock-on effect on councils' ability to invest in their existing stock and new supply.
And going on, he said, a greater level of rent convergence from 2026 to 27 would have meant more councils were confident to invest in building new homes. A delayed introduction will inevitably mean fewer homes being built. Now, in relation to Section 106 agreements, where no affordable housing provider is willing to buy, the new approach will allow the tenure of uncontracted Section 106 units to be varied in such circumstances. And the ministry announcement says, in tandem, the government will work hand in glove with providers, councils and developers to agree a framework to get the Section 106 market moving again, with new measures to reset and expand the market, simplify the process and boost financial capacity of providers to buy these homes.
Well, it'll be prudent to have a look at what Housing Secretary Steve Reed said about all this. And what he said was, every new social home means one less family stuck on a housing waiting list. Building more social housing is crucial to fixing the housing crisis for good, but that's only part of the story. We're also driving up the quality of social housing so that they're well insulated and damp free, to keep families safe and cut their energy bills in the years ahead. So there we are. Now, every 2 weeks, we turn our attention to Wales and the Welsh Bulletin. And I've picked out here the responses to the Senate's consultation on removing profit from children's homes. Now, we did report on this some time ago, Dennis, last year.
You did.
The consultation closed in October of last year. And it's a fascinating approach. I must admit, it's quite impressive. That's my own opinion. The Welsh Government's programme for government set out a bold transformation of children's social care, centred on helping more children stay safely with their families and reducing the number entering care in the first place.
And when care is necessary, the aim is to keep children close to home, connected to their communities, and in placements no longer than required for their well-being. At the heart of that agenda is a commitment to eliminate private profit from the care of looked-after children, shifting Wales towards a value-driven, needs-based model. Now, this is not a like-for-like replacement of providers, but a fundamental redesign of provision, reshaping models of care, ownership, wraparound support and reinvestment.
Yeah. So the Health and Social Care Wales Act 2025 brings this vision into law. So from April of this year, only not-for-profit organisations will be able to register new children's homes, secure accommodation, or fostering services. And these providers must operate for the welfare of the children, reinvest surpluses, and meet strict governance requirements. And further phased restrictions follow in 2027 and by 2030, when new placements with for-profit providers will largely cease to exist.
The Welsh Government consultation sought views on a range of matters on registration, annual returns and enforcement arrangements, which it said marks a significant milestone in reshaping care so that public investment is fully directed towards children's outcomes and not a shareholder return. So, Helen, let's take a look at the consultation responses.
Yes, well, the Welsh Government received 27 responses to its consultation. Uh, I don't know in Wales whether that's a good amount or not. Um, but reflecting views, they were looking for reflecting views from for-profit and not-for-profit providers. Local authorities responded and sector bodies, including joint submissions from, now I actually, well, Cymru, Four Seas, Foster, Wales, and the WLGA, so that's the Welsh Local Government
Yep.
Association. Responses broadly revealed strong and varied views about removing profit from children's care, with many revisiting the overarching policy principle rather than focusing solely on the technical regulations.
And a central theme was concern about the administrative burden of all of this, particularly for smaller providers, with calls for proportionate processes, clear communication, checklists in some cases, and streamlined registration requirements. Respondents also highlighted the need for phased implementation to avoid service disruption, noting risks in transitioning too quickly. And many requested clarity on timelines, guidance, and expectations, especially around where providers seek to re-establish as not-for-profit entities.
Well, I can see that the concern around service disruption would be very, very acute, because obviously you need the places for the children to go, and I can see that that would be a major concern. And another significant theme in the responses was the emphasis on robust monitoring and enforcement, including clearer definitions of unreasonable and disproportionate financial arrangements, stronger scrutiny of financial structures, and improved transparency around reinvestment. And respondents stressed that enforcement must be proportionate and child-centred, avoiding destabilisation of placements, because children being moved, of course, is detrimental to their
Yes,
well-being. Yeah.
indeed. Concerns were also raised about capacity and expertise within the Care Inspectorate, with respondents calling for additional resources, forensic financial capability, and close coordination with other regulators. And on annual returns, respondents supported the principle of enhanced transparency, but again raised concerns about the administrative impact and the need for clear guidance, digital tools, and proportionate expectations.
Yeah, well, overall, the consultation highlights the importance of clarity, proportionality, strong guidance, sector engagement, and careful sequencing as Wales progresses towards a fully not-for-profit care system.
Interesting.
Very much so. Now, Dennis, we've got some good news to talk about, haven't we?
We do have good news, and we like to talk about good news. And this is the item finally from me today, and it's definitely a good news story. The Regulator of Social Housing has awarded Bournemouth, Christchurch, and Poole Council, forgive me, I'll describe them as BCP. They've been awarded a C1 grading following an inspection, meaning it meets the outcomes of the Housing Regulator's consumer standards. The regulator said BCP is making effective use of its systems to identify and address potential issues and areas for improvement. Now, I should explain, this is the first time the regulator has issued a consumer grade for BCP, which becomes only the seventh local authority to receive this highest grade.
Yeah, it's great. Cheshire Peaks and Plains Housing Trust also received a C1 grade in the latest round of investigations, whilst the City of Wolverhampton Council and St Albans City and District Council both received C2 gradings. Now, Kate Dodsworth, she's the Chief of Regulatory Engagement, said that while it is encouraging to see more landlords achieve C1 gradings as our regulation drive improved standards across the sector, there is nevertheless no room for complacency, even for those landlords that received the highest grades. We will continue, she said, to root out issues through our inspections, stability checks, and other regulatory tools.
And going on, she said, social landlords are facing intensifying risks, so good governance remains more important than ever. Weaknesses in governance can undermine a landlord's ability to maintain financial viability or to provide good homes and services to tenants. And she said, we will continue to engage constructively with these landlords where there are issues to ensure things are put right promptly.
Yeah. And Councillor Kieran Wilson, BCP's council cabinet member, who's responsible for housing and regulatory services, said, and I'm going to quote, our priority is to provide quality homes for our residents, not simply bricks and mortar. And we are incredibly proud of this grading outcome, especially in the context that only 6 other councils have achieved a C1, which is a testament to the hardworking team we have at BCP Homes, who are genuinely passionate and work so hard every day to make sure our tenants receive a high level of service. And he also said that they are also always striving to be a council and landlord who listens, learns, and improves. That's the key, I think. Residents' voices are at the heart of everything we do, he said, and tenants have worked proactively with us. And again, that engagement and that collaboration to help shape the housing management services we provide today.
And going on, he said, this is, of course, a huge achievement. However, this should be seen as a very important milestone on a journey to deliver even more for our residents. We can always want to go further and provide the best service we possibly can. So, well done, BCP.
Yeah, well done. Congratulations. Now for our final item of this podcast edition, and taken from the LGA Bulletin. This is the guidance on common ground, building cohesive communities, and why the belong guidance matters more than ever. So in a time of increasing social pressures, rising inequalities and fragmented communities, local authorities across the UK face growing demands to strengthen cohesion and create places where residents feel connected, safe, and able to thrive. Now, the Belong Guidance Overview was developed by the Belong Network and endorsed by the Local Government Association. And it responds directly to those challenges by offering councils a clear, evidence-driven framework for building stronger, more resilient communities.
The guidance begins by highlighting why social cohesion strategies are essential. Councils report a consistent need for support in defining what cohesion work includes, navigating statutory duties and building a compelling business case for investment. The document underscores that social cohesion is not an optional extra. It is fundamental to placemaking, economic vitality, public safety, and long-term community well-being.
Yeah, and a core strength of the guidance is its emphasis on a clear, structured approach to developing local cohesion strategies. It outlines the key principles required for effective planning, including strong local leadership, robust governance, evidence-based design, and meaningful community engagement. And councils are encouraged to use high-quality data, adopt co-production methods, and embed monitoring and evaluation throughout the strategy cycle to ensure that cohesion work is not only very well intentioned, but measurable and outcome driven.
Another vital component of the guidance is the focus on partnership working. Local authorities cannot build cohesive communities alone. They rely on collaboration with police forces, education providers, employers, civil society organisations, housing associations, faith groups, cultural institutions, and more. The guidance explains why partnership models matter and provides examples of local partnership structures, such as community safety partnerships and resilience forums that have been effective in supporting social cohesion.
Yes, and the role of elected members also receives careful attention, and rightly so, because councillors act as place leaders, conveners, and connectors. And the guidance outlines how they can provide oversight, strengthen accountability mechanisms, and ensure cohesion considerations are embedded across council service areas, including areas such as housing, regen, community safety, public health, libraries, adult education, and culture. And practical examples such as how library services can be used to foster social connection and shared spaces make the guidance especially relevant for day-to-day council operations.
Perhaps most importantly, the guidance is grounded in real-world experience. With over 150 organisations consulted and 71 case studies examined, it offers councils tested insights into what works on the ground. And these case studies demonstrate how different councils have designed successful cohesion initiatives, the challenges they've encountered, and the lessons learned. This real-world evidence helps local authorities avoid common pitfalls and replicate effective approaches.
Yes, and at a time when communities face pressures from things like misinformation, economic uncertainty, and social division, the Belong guidance is a timely and comprehensive resource because it does provide local authorities with the clarity, practical tools, and strategic direction required to help nurture cohesive, confident, and connected communities. There's a bit of alliteration there, I think, Dennis.
And as the LGA notes, cohesive communities are resilient communities,
Mm.
and resilience is more important now than ever before. If your council is looking to strengthen social cohesion, the Belong Guidance offers not only a roadmap, but also the inspiration evidence needed to drive lasting positive change. And I know you'll come on to mention this, Helen, but all of the guidance and the more detail is in Bulletin 5, from which this is taken.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, that's it for another edition of the podcast. So, as Dennis says, you can read more on the items discussed today and many more besides by going to bulletin number 40, available on the LLG
Sorry,
website
number
now.
5.
So, yeah, I've got ahead of myself, Dennis. Bulletin
We're
number.
not there yet.
No, we're not. We soon will be. I know. Be Christmas again. Bulletin number 5 on the LLG website now. Now, next week, I won't be here, so you'll have the delight of our CEO, Deborah Evans, on the podcast with Dennis. And until then, it's goodbye from me.
And from me too. Goodbye now.